country. And that's what was underway when Hadish Kabatu was accidentally released. He was being taken from the prison to an immigration removal centre, but somehow was accidentally released. Some mistake that has clearly happened. We are now told, confirmed by sources to me, that a prison officer has been removed from active duties while they investigate what is described, they say, as a rare occurrence. But this is deeply, deeply embarrassing. It's beyond embarrassing. It's highly, highly concerning to people in that area of Essex, of course, who for many months now have been voicing their real serious concern about this man and also about the wider threat from these asylum hotels.
Mark White, thank you very much for now. We will be going back to Mark if there is any breaking news. If you are just joining us, obviously this is Michelle Dewberry's show, but it's not a normal Michelle Dewberry show. I'm Dawn Neeson, standing in for Michelle. We are talking about the live breaking story of the manhunt underway for the Epping Hotel migrant sex attacker after he was accidentally freed from Chelmsford Prison round about 12 o'clock today. He is still on the run. We have no idea of his whereabouts. He was last seen wearing the prison-issue grey tracksuit that they wear and carrying a plastic bag. Last seen in Chelmsford, but that was at midday today. He was being transferred from Chelmsford Prison to a deportation centre where he was going to be flown back to Ethiopia. He is now at large in this country and there is a manhunt underway. The judge at his trial described his behaviour as disgusting and sickening, and he has been described as a sexual predator. David Lammy, the Home Secretary, is said to be absolutely furious. Well, there are many, many women and girls in this country who are more than furious. We are also terrified that these people are roaming our streets and we let them. I'm going to talk to my panel briefly on that. We have the normal Dewbs panel here. I have Sebastian Salick and Charlie Downs with me today. Charlie, I'm going to come to you first on this one. This is a horror show, an absolute horror show. What do you make of this?
I mean, part of me wants to laugh because, you know, if I don't laugh, I'm going to cry. You know, I've been away for a couple of weeks, Dawn, and stepping away from the sort of churn and fray of day-to-day politics has been so nice. And I thought when I came back, perhaps things would be looking a little bit brighter. But actually,
that was your first mistake.
I know, right? This is the state of our country. I mean, when do we admit that, you know, we're approaching, like, failed state status? I mean, there's a spokesman for the Essex Police has said that this is down to human error, which I can believe. You know, I don't want to suggest that this has been done intentionally, but you would think that this guy, who was the cause of all of the protests that happened around Epping in sort of recent months, you would think that he would be a high priority inmate to make sure, you know, you don't let him go. And yet he's been allowed to, you know, walk the streets. And it's just like something out of the thick of it. I mean, I've seen a lot of people saying that online, and you know, I just don't know what is there even to say about this. It's just ridiculous.
OK, let's come to you, Sebastian. I mean, Sebastian, the protests we saw all summer at the Bell Hotel, I think we're looking at some footage from the time there. Bell Hotel in Epping, and a migrant hotel. There have been protests all summer. Many, many people were angry at local residents who were protesting at this hotel. There was counter-protests organised by the left, implying that the residents there who were worried about the inmates, all young men, by the way, and they were accused of being racist. Now, when something like this happens, a man described as a sexual predator who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl is now on the run. Those residents weren't racist, were they? They were just concerned residents.
I don't think the residents were racist. I mean, going back to that, and we're going to open a can of worms here, but there were a lot of far-right groups who descended upon those protests and disseminated messaging that was really unpleasant.
You still talk about far-right, though. I mean,
well, we're talking about people like the Homeland Party, who
even if
are quite clearly far-right,
Sebastian, they are still concerned about what is going on in this country. I don't actually care if you're far-right or you're far-left at this stage. I care about the girls and the women that might be assaulted by this person.
Yeah, so do I. I'm really terrified to know that this guy is on the run. It was a huge mess up by the prison service. We can only hope that because he has presumably very little money, nowhere to go, he's been let off in an urban area, that he can be found, contained and taken out of harm's way, or the opposite, really. He is the harm.
Yes.
Very, very quickly. And that's, I think, what everybody wants to see.
That's an interesting point, because he won't have any money, because he was meant to be transported to a deportation centre. I mean, we know we have a problem in this country, Charlie, with with the justice system. We know we don't have any prisons. We know they're understaffed. We know the people that are working in these prisons are underpaid. We know we don't have a probation service. We know the police on our streets, there aren't enough of them, and they're under pressure to arrest people for hurty words on social media still. I mean, it's an absolute mess from start to finish.
Well, this comes amid what's being described as a crime wave, given figures published last Thursday suggest that crimes like drug trafficking and shoplifting and all of these sorts of things are on the rise. But this particular story, I think, is the cherry on top of what was already a perfect embodiment of the state of our justice system and indeed our immigration services and asylum system today, because this guy shouldn't even have been in the country in the first place. He's an illegal immigrant from Ethiopia, a dodgy guy that we don't know anything about, who lo and behold goes on to literally sexually assault a 14-year-old girl in her school uniform, and then when another woman comes to intervene, he sexually assaults her as well. This is a man who was possessed by lust at the time, and we can't be sure how many of these guys are in our country now, because literally tens of thousands of these people are currently being put up in hotels at our expense, and it shows no sign of abating, because Labour's weak attempts to solve this issue with this one-in, one-out policy clearly isn't working. There's been 42 migrants deported under this scheme since it was announced in July, and during that time about 20,000 more people have come into the country. So until we get serious about actually dealing with the problem of illegal immigration, things like this are going to keep happening, and will only be serious when we cut off the pull factors that exist in this country, because Macron was right about that. We have an economy that makes it very easy for these people to come here and earn quite a comfortable living on this kind of, grey economy, whether that's peddling drugs or working for food delivery services and all these sorts of things. It's so farcical.
Sorry, comfortable living?
Yeah.
How much do you think they're earning?
Well, they're being put up in hotels, clothed, given 50 quid a week by the taxpayer, and then they're able to work in these jobs, which...
But how much do you think they're earning, roughly?
Well, look, I mean, I'm sure it varies.
As a food delivery service person...
I'm aware that food delivery services don't pay well. I'm aware that many of them pay beneath the minimum wage. Yeah. But for an illegal immigrant who should be able to earn nothing, anything above nothing is comfortable. But
just to be clear, you said a comfortable living. I don't think earning below minimum wage is a comfortable living.
Well, for somebody who is a criminal who shouldn't be here, whose earning capacity should be zero, anything above zero is comfortable, in my definition.
OK, interesting.
I have to say...
Do you disagree?
I mean, I'm not going to defend the fact that they shouldn't be working. That is really clear.
Yeah.
I just pick you up on that.
So anything above zero is comfortable.
I just picked you up on that point. I just don't think anybody earning below minimum wage, you could be said to be living a comfortable life.
Yeah, a legal citizen earning below minimum wage, that's ridiculous, right?
Anyone. I just don't think anybody earning below minimum wage, you could call that
But you just said that he shouldn't have any earning potential because he's an illegal immigrant. Correct. So why is it such a problem that he is earning above £0 that might be below the minimum wage?
No, it is a problem. He shouldn't be earning anything. No illegal immigrant or no asylum seeker.
So he should be earning below the minimum wage.
I just pick you up on that specific point, that's all.
To a lot of people, though, Sebastian, he would have been living a more comfortable life than many people in this country who are struggling to survive. We have a big homeless problem in this country. Tower Hamlets, where one of these hotels was based, I think it's nearly half of the children in that borough are living in poverty. Yeah. Meanwhile, we have illegal migrants being housed in a 4-star hotel literally next door to these kids who are living in poverty. So, they are living, to go back to Charlie's point, a comfortable existence while we've got kids in this country living in poverty. So that sounds more comfortable than those kids are going through.
So my entire political worldview is grounded in the fact that nobody should fall below a baseline level of dignified living. And so I think our focus should be firmly on those who do fall below that. The homeless children that you mentioned, that's terrible. We should fire our political cannons on issues like that and make sure that nobody is living in an undignified way, rather than pointing to somebody else and saying, oh, don't they have it brilliantly? Because I don't think that's fair either.
Well, here's the thing, then. Why don't we move all the migrants out of that? I'm talking about Tower Hamlets because it happens to be my local London borough, but I'm sure it goes on where you are as well. Why don't we move all those migrants out of that 4-star hotel, by the way, 4-star hotel in Tower Hamlets? Send them back. I know that sounds terrible, but send them back. I don't even care where we send them back to at this stage of the game. Send them back and put the kids up in that hotel.
Well, you have a problem because we have a legal duty to process those asylum claims. And we have to put them somewhere. And that is the big puzzle that nobody quite has the answer to. We're in the process of, well, the Labour government is in the process of moving them into army bases and elsewhere, which I think is really positive. It's good to use those accommodation facilities for this purpose. And clearly hotels aren't the perfect solution. That was something that was foisted upon us as a country by the previous government.
Charlie, do you think the government has got the priorities wrong in this country at the moment? They are putting illegal migrants before the people of this country.
Well, this is to say nothing of the explosion in houses in multiple occupation, which in many cases are used to house illegal migrants. And the government can talk a good game about shutting down hotels, but in a lot of cases they're being moved into HMOs, which is actually way worse than being held in hotels, because at least when you have them in the hotels, they're all in one place. There's often security on site. But when we're talking about HMOs, we're literally talking about houses next door to you and me, right? And once again, these are people who we don't know why they're here. We often don't know who they are, where they've come from, what they've done on their way to getting here, what they're fleeing from. Many of them, you know, claim to be fleeing persecution. But actually, when 75% of those coming are adult males, I find it very hard to believe that each and every one of them is a good faith refugee. I think there's only one reason that you would come to this country illegally and pay the huge sums of money that costs to the people traffickers who provide those services, and that's because you don't want your name on the books. Because it's perfectly easy to come here legally. Plenty of people do so every year. But plenty of people increasingly come here illegally because we're viewed on the world stage as a soft touch.
Do you want to come back quickly on that one, Sebastian?
Yeah, I just think it's terribly uncharitable. And look, there are going to be some bad eggs. That's just indisputable. And we're seeing one of them escaping prison today. But the vast majority of them, chances are going to be people escaping horrible situations that are completely unimaginable to any of us who are lucky enough to be born in Britain. And I think we need a degree of compassion towards those people to do the right thing, process their claims. If they are successful, to integrate them in society, and if they are not successful, to move them on elsewhere.
OK, my compassion, I have to say, is with the 14-year-old girl that was assaulted by this person. If you are joining us now, it is Michelle Dewbs show with me, Dawn Neeson, obviously hosting it, and you are joining us as we are covering the live manhunt for the Epping Hotel migrant sex attacker after he was accidentally freed from prison in Chelmsford today. That happened at lunchtime today. He is still on the run. So that is the situation. We will bring you any cough and spit on this story as we can. Now, the Ministry of Justice has told GBNews that it is looking into reports that Epping migrant sex attacker Hadush Kabatu has been accidentally released from jail. A prison service spokesman has said, "We are urgently working with police to return an offender to custody following a release in error at HMP Chelmsford. Public protection is our top priority, and we've launched an investigation into this incident." By the way, please do, as Michelle always says, get in touch. This programme is about you. gbnews.com/your say. Have your say on this story and any of the other stories we will be discussing throughout the show, including this one. Yes, in other news, a migrant who arrived in Britain by a small boat was today found guilty of the murder of the hotel worker and mother of one, Rhiannon Skye White, in October last year. Jurors needed just over 2 hours to convict Deng Chol Majek of stabbing the 27-year-old. GB News national reporter Jack Carson was at Wolverhampton Crown Court for the sentencing, and he brings us this report now.
Yeah, Dawn, this attack from the very start was called vicious by the prosecution. Rhiannon White, a mother, an auntie, a sister, a daughter, being killed in such a horrific way when, in October last year, Deng Majek, a Sudanese asylum seeker whose age is disputed, and I'll come on to that point in a second, followed Rhiannon after she had finished work at 11 o'clock. She crossed the road from the hotel where the Bescott Stadium train station is. She walked up the steps, waited on the train platform. Unbeknown to her, Majek, who had been waiting outside in the car park, started to follow her, getting closer and closer, and then stabbing her 23 times on the train platform with a screwdriver. She sustained horrific injuries from that attack and died in hospital 3 days later. CCTV and DNA evidence was a huge part of this trial over the past 2 weeks. CCTV which showed the movements of Majek from the hotel to the train station, back from the train station after the attack to a shop to buy alcohol, then back to the hotel and into his room, where later police would arrest him and recover the distinctive clothing the prosecution called it he was seen wearing on that CCTV footage. But we also heard from witness evidence during the trial, witnesses which told the jury and the court that they felt scared by Majek in the hours before the attack. CCTV was shown to the court of him seemingly staring at Rhiannon as she was handing out snacks. Witnesses said in the trial that they were worried he was going to do something that night, even going to the lengths of informing the hotel security that, quote, they all felt intimidated. And of course, 11 of those stab injuries were so horrific, they are ultimately what caused her death. You know, after the attack and he went back to his hotel, police were able to recover footage of him seemingly laughing and dancing. As you can see, blue lights, sirens in the background of the emergency services attending to Rhiannon, who had been found on the train platform by the train guard when the train she was meant to catch pulled into the station. The prosecution called that laughing and dancing utterly callous. But speaking after the verdict here today, her family and her sister gave this to the press.
Throughout this trial, we have been given no reason as to why he chose Rhiannon, no accountability for his actions, and no remorse. She fought for her life and to save herself from this sick, twisted, and cowardly human who showed no regard for Rhiannon or human life.
So that, of course, is Rhiannon's sister, Alex, speaking outside court after that verdict. And we're now not going to get a sentencing until the 15th of December at the earliest. Essentially, over the next few weeks and months, the prosecution and defence and Majek himself has got to be assessed in order to be able to determine his exact age. Because, of course, a murder, a guilty verdict, which is what he's been found of today here at Wolverhampton Crown Court, automatically carries a life sentence, but the mitigating factors, particularly around age and maturity, will determine the minimum term that he will serve before he can be put before a parole board for possible, of course, release on licence. So there is still work to be done here, because Majek claims that he is 19 years old, born on the 1st of January 2006, but back in 2023, when he was in Germany and he had an asylum claim rejected in Germany, coming initially from Sudan through Libya and Italy, it was said that in an incident back in August 2023 that he was actually 27 years old. He disputed that in his own witness evidence, saying that that was an incorrect age recorded by the Italian authorities when he was, quote, saved from the sea. So there is this argument about his age. He claims he is 19. The prosecution have said from the start of this trial that they did not believe that, and now assessments must be done over the next few weeks and months before that sentence hearing, where the judge can fully be able to determine and have the right information to determine those mitigating factors like age, like maturity, before he hands down that life sentence for murder. And you heard there, you know, from Rhiannon's sister just how much of a loss Rhiannon is. And just to bring you the quotes from the senior investigating officer at the British Transport Police, Detective Chief Inspector Paul Atwell, he described this as a brutal, cowardly and entirely unprovoked attack on a vibrant and selfless young woman who had her whole life ahead of her.
Jack, an incredibly horrific story. That thing that we're told doesn't happen just keeps happening these days. We understand he didn't show any remorse in court whatsoever.
Very much so, and still is what the police and even the family say. There is no indication of exactly why he chose to do this to Rhiannon. There has been no sense of remorse, and immediately upon seeing the CCTV footage, his moments were tracked from the hotel to the train station and back. There is only one way in and out of that train station. He was the only other person seen on that CCTV right after Rhiannon walked onto the train platform to get her train. So the fact we we've had a whole 2-week trial, and even all throughout that, at every opportunity someone would have to plead guilty, he of course has remained convinced that he was innocent, and this was a misidentity in this trial. But of course the jury have seen the CCTV, they have heard the witness evidence, both of the witnesses that the prosecution have put forward and Majek himself, who gave evidence in this trial, and they have chosen to believe the prosecution. They have chosen to believe that CCTV, that was Majek, and they found him unanimously guilty at Wolverhampton Crown Court today.
Jack Carson, thank you very much for bringing us that other horrific story. This is about Deng Chol Majek, who claims to be 19 but with no documentation. He travelled, he's an illegal migrant from, where is he from? From the Sudan. He lived in Italy and Germany and travelled through both of those countries where he was turned down for asylum. Jack, this is just the most insane story. This man should not have been in this country. Rhiannon should still be alive.
Well, there is obviously now questions around exactly, how asylum seekers are housed in the UK while they're waiting for those asylum processes to be, those claims to be processed. We know that he had his first interview with the Home Office during his stay at the Park Inn Resorts hotel opposite that train station. So he had his first interview with the Home Office about his asylum claim, but he'd come all the way from Sudan. Now, we heard in his own witness evidence that he said he'd been married at 16, that he left Sudan after there was a threat on his life from somebody in the Sudanese army. He said that with that threat and a war in Sudan, his family fled to the north of the country, and then ultimately he left his family behind. We heard in witness evidence that he'd got a daughter that was born after he'd left Sudan, but he went through Libya, and then, as I said, he was saved in the sea in Italy. He spent some time in Germany, but as I said, that asylum claim that he filed in Germany was rejected. They rejected his asylum, and in between that in 2023 to July in 2024, when he began staying at that hotel in Walsall, he made his way, of course, into the UK and applied for asylum. And so, after this, Rhiannon's family are left with a situation where a man, which completely unprovoked, seemingly, has killed, their daughter, has killed their sister, has killed their friend, and just the words that they describe him as a sick, twisted and cowardly human. They said that they hope Majek spends the rest of his life alone and unloved. Strong words, but completely imaginable given the pain and the grief that they're still going through.
Absolutely understandable. Jack Carson, thank you very much. I just want to read out, I mean, the details of this attack are absolutely horrific. I'm not going to read them out, obviously, because they are just too distressing, certainly for this time of day. But I just want to read out the comment from Rhiannon's mum. Rhiannon was 27 years old. She had a 5-year-old little boy. And there are some lovely pictures online if you want to look at her playing with a little boy. And Rhiannon's mum, her own mum, said that when she had to break the nose to her 5-year-old grandson, she has never heard a child scream as in the same way as this little boy screamed when he knew that his mummy was gone to heaven. How else do you explain to a 5-year-old what's happened? That's what he was told, and Rhiannon's mum said the scream was just unbearable and she'll never stop hearing it. I just can't begin to imagine what this family are going through, all from a man that should not have been in this country. Sebastian, I know you tend to see the good. You are a good person. You tend to see the good in everybody. You tend to think that people are coming here are fleeing, trauma and terror and torture themselves. But Rhiannon should still be alive. Her little boy should still have a mum. This should not have happened. He should not have been here.
No, you're completely right that... I'm just so sorry to Rhiannon's family and her friends for what they're going through. As a result of this, it's completely horrible, and I don't think there's any good in this man at all, and I hope he faces justice and gets what he deserves, frankly. It is the reality of things that sometimes there are people who commit these acts, and we have to deal with them in the proper manner.
They do happen a lot. Just a very quick Google. I mean, you can try this at home as well. Just a very quick Google of illegal migrants who have crossed the channel, many of them in those boats, who have committed sex assaults and been found convicted. This isn't just stats put out there by the right-wing groups, in inverted commas, but the stats of people that have been convicted of crimes, sentenced to crime, sex assaults, rapes. There's an endless list of men from young men, you're all young men, from all over the country, all over the world. Just 2 days ago, a Syrian migrant from an asylum hotel was convicted of a sex assault against 3 different women. Charlie, what on earth is going on?
Well, it does indicate a pattern of the type of person who is coming to our country illegally. They tend to be very low impulse control, very, let's say, appetite-driven individuals. We saw that in the previous story that we covered, in this guy who just went on a sexual assaulting spree. And now with this guy who committed a crime far worse, which is completely unprovoked, cold-blooded murder, because he seemed to just want to do that. He seemed to get a kick out of it. Because if you look at the footage of him when he returned to the hotel after he murdered this poor young woman, Rhiannon, he went and bought a pack of beers, went back to the hotel and was seen dancing. This is a guy, right? This is a human being who is possessed by something that I can't wrap my head around. I can't understand it. But there is something in this man that is profoundly evil. And as a Christian, I struggle with this because I want to say that he's irredeemable. I mean, how do you reconcile having a civilization with having these kinds of people present in your country? These are people who know nothing of civilization.
Just quickly, Rhiannon's sister, Emma, wrote on her social media about her sister's murder that Keir Starmer has blood on his hands because of the immigration policy of this government and the fact that we have had over 39,000 people in a year now coming over on those smooth boats, 11,000 since the one-in, one-out policy was introduced by Labour. Sebastian, do you think Keir Starmer has blood on his hands?
I don't agree with that. I can understand how she would reach that conclusion in the awful situation she's in. But I think we have a duty to process those claims. And look, there are going to be some people like this who are just evil. I think, Charlie, you're right, and it's a really difficult one to grapple with because sometimes there are just no redeeming features. But we have to remember these are the outliers. These are the edge cases. It's terribly, terribly sad. But we can't allow ourselves to tar everybody who comes over seeking our help with the same brush.
But when does it stop being worth it? That's what I want to know. How many of these events have to happen until we decide, look, this asylum system we have is not fit for purpose? And more to the point, people who are already in this country, who were born here, who have citizenship, who have a right to be here, whose families maybe have been here for hundreds, possibly thousands of years, when those people are struggling so much, when does an asylum system become a luxury? Add to that the fact that it's attracting these sorts of people. When does it stop being worth it?
I think it's a question about who we want to be on the world stage. And I think it's undeniable that we've taken a knock on the world stage after Brexit. We've been taken less seriously, which I think for all of us is really sad. We want to be proud of our country. We want to be seen as the great, strong nation that we are. And if we were to withdraw our asylum system, we would really be taking a step back. And there are very few countries that act like that. Most upstanding, respectable countries have a system like that where they give some people the chance to become one of us and to join us. Clearly not everybody. You have to be discerning, but to take away the whole system, I think would be a real step back for us.
But why does it matter? I mean, when one's moral kind of centre of gravity is like what an EU bureaucrat would think of your country, and this is what that kind of moral paradigm leads to, when do you look at that moral paradigm and think, actually, maybe this is just not worth following?
I'm not talking about EU bureaucrats. That's come out of nowhere.
Well, who are you talking about? You're talking about the world stage. Who are we talking about?
I'm talking about how we feel about ourselves as a country and how we are seen by others. And that could be anybody in the world. And that's really important for all of us.
OK. Right, gentlemen, we're going to leave it there. We're going to go back to our breaking news story. That's the police manhunt underway to find the Epping Hotel migrant sex attacker after he was accidentally released from jail in Chelmsford today. Hadbush Kabatu was meant to be sent to an immigration detention centre to be deported, but was mistakenly freed. Honestly, I don't believe what I'm reading out here. Joining me now is retired prison governor Vanessa Frake. Vanessa, always a voice of common sense and reason. What do you make of this, frankly, horrific story?
I don't know whether I've got any common sense or reason to this story, Dawn, I'm afraid. I absolutely words fail me. I think that, you know, this is just a clear example of the disarray of our prison service and the lack of following procedures. This should never have happened, particularly with a high-profile offender like this guy.
Vanessa, just talk me through what, I mean, obviously you don't know, you weren't there, but just talk me through what procedure would have been. I mean, he was from Chelmsford Prison being transferred to an immigration removal centre to be deported. Talk me through what kind of procedure would have been followed or should have been followed.
OK, very briefly, first of all, the custody office who deals with all of prisoners' details, inputs in records, works out when their release dates are due, etc., etc. They draw up the discharge paperwork. That paperwork should have been signed off yesterday by a governor grade to ensure that it actually reads what it's supposed to read. Then following that, this morning around probably about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, he would have been unlocked. He would have been identified via his name and number and taken down to receptions for processing. Down there, he'd have probably been given a clean set of clothes, a discharge grant of 80 quid or so. And then again, the discharge paperwork has gone through with him again. He is identified via information from his records, his next of kin, his date of birth, his home address, what part of Ethiopia, things that would have been asked when he first arrived into Chelmsford. And then it goes to a more senior custody officer for discharge. He then goes through again with the individual, all the said paperwork, gets him to sign for it, and takes him across to the gate, where again, the paperwork is gone through, and he is released. My own thoughts is that the original discharge paperwork was incorrect. Instead of saying discharge to a detention centre, I would imagine, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine it probably said just discharge. But there should have been many points along the way before he was let out of that gate where the error should have been picked up.
These errors are picked up. What happens in a prison? I mean, you can just imagine wholesale panic.
Oh, without a doubt, I expect there's some very red faces in Chelmsford and at the MOJ as we speak. Apparently, David Lammy's furious. Well, that should concern us all. But you know, look, you know, there is no excuse for errors like this. And the problem with errors like this with high-profile offenders, the same as when Daniel Khalif escaped from Wandsworth, is that it is a catalogue of events which lead to the error. You know, there are checks in place, there are procedures in place. And if you miss one or two of those procedures out, then the error occurs. And that's what appears to have happened on this occasion. And, you know, an investigation will be launched probably from an outside body. And those that are responsible will be dealt with.
Yeah, well, heads will have to roll, won't they, Vanessa?
Without a doubt, you know, from the governor down, ultimately it's his or her responsibility. You know, particularly in high-profile cases like this individual, you know, these guys come across here, we have no idea who they are. You know, we're letting all sorts of people into our country with no idea who they are, what they've been up to, what they do, what mistakes they're going to make or whatever. And, you know, my heart goes out to the people of Chelmsford and the people of Essex, and particularly to the victims of this guy, because they will have to live with his sexual assaults for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Just quickly and finally, Vanessa, just curious about this one. He was last seen wearing the grey prison issue tracksuit with a clear plastic bag. He wouldn't have had any money on him, though, would he?
Yes, he would have been given a discharge grant.
Right.
If they mistakenly thought that he was being discharged, they would have given him a discharge grant.
Right.
If he was going, which makes me think that the original paperwork was incorrect, because if he was going to a detention centre, he wouldn't have been given any money.
OK. And what's the discharge grant? How much would that be?
I think now I wouldn't say for certain, but it's around about 80, 85 pounds, something like that.
Right, OK, so he could get a fair way. We don't know where he is, but he could get a fair way with that amount of money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine that the prison is working quite closely with the local police, seeing if, you know, he's who his next of kin is, who his friends are, any visits that he's had, that sort of thing.
OK. Vanessa, thank you very much. That is retired prison governor Vanessa Frake there with the actual nuts and bolts of what happens when someone is released from prison. Let's just have a quick chat with the panel on this one. Sebastian Salek and Charlie Downs are still with me, keeping me company on a horrible night. I'm glad to have some company, to be honest with you. Sebastian, Vanessa's just explained there very articulately what happens when a prisoner is released from prison. It does sound like it's a catalogue of errors, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, you kind of want to go back and get the blow-by-blow account and find out exactly what went wrong. And I'm sure in time we'll know, but given it's so close to the event, we just don't have those answers. I think the important thing now is that we find him. He's God knows where. It's really scary to know that he's out there. And an evening as well, the nights are drawing in. It's going to get dark soon. You really would hope that he can be found tonight before nightfall. And then all of this can at least temporarily come to an end, and then they can do the post-mortem, what went wrong, and make sure it never happens again.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be holding my breath. But, I mean, Charlie, at the moment, you know, as Sebastian's just said, the nights are drawing in. This person, as his behaviour was described as disgusting and sickening behaviour by the judge. He's described as a sexual predator. He has no concept that a 14-year-old girl is not a suitable sexual partner. He sexually assaulted a 14-year-old in broad daylight in Epping High Street. She was in her school uniform. So he has no concept of what is acceptable behaviour. He's on the run somewhere.
Well, again, we're not dealing here with like some kind of criminal mastermind. We're dealing with somebody probably who has a very sub-average IQ, who is very poor at impulse control, who just obviously acts on his appetites. So I don't think we're dealing with some kind of scheming individual. He's probably sitting out there right now thinking, like, he probably doesn't even understand what's happened. He's just out and about, still wearing his prison clothes, in broad daylight, being caught on camera. And he, I mean, look, if he does have a thought in that head of his, he's probably thinking that we are just a joke of a country, that we've allowed a guy like him to just be let go.
I was curious, you said that he probably doesn't have a high IQ, probably doesn't understand what's going on. Now, is it the fact that he won't understand what's going on because he doesn't have a high IQ, Sebastian, or is it because the culture difference between the country he comes from and the culture here, where women and girls are equal citizens who have their own rights? They are not to be abused by men or treated as second-class citizens. Many of the men that are coming over on these small boats have that opinion of us.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, there are many men who were born and raised here who also have that opinion. There are all women.
We don't have to import more, though, do we?
No, but we're also stuck with them and the consequences of their actions. You know, every woman will have had experiences or know people who have had experiences, and that is a shameful thing in its own right. I mean, as for this man in particular, we don't know anything about his IQ. I think it's quite dehumanising to speculate on that.
Heaven forbid we dehumanise the sex offender.
Well, I just hope that whatever his IQ, it plays against him in this scenario, and he's not able to seek refuge. I think you're right in saying he's not a criminal mastermind. That is something to cling on to, isn't it? It's a positive. In his shoes, I just don't know what I would do. And I really think it means that, hopefully, he's going to be found quite quickly.
Well, yeah, I mean, this happened at, we believe, at 7 minutes past midday today, and there is still no sign of him. Thank you for now, gentlemen. You are staying with me. Believe me, you're not going anywhere. Joining me now is former Labour Home Affairs Advisor, Danny Shaw. Danny, good to talk to you. Danny, this is, frankly, a horrific story and an embarrassment for every aspect of our legal system here. What do you make of it?
It is a massive political embarrassment. It's also a security concern because this man carries risk. The judge, I think, at his sentencing said that he was at risk of reoffending. He's on the sex offenders register for 10 years. He's on a sexual harm prevention order for 5 years. He still had 3 months in custody to serve, and he should have been deported. So from every angle, it's a terrible blunder, a terrible mistake by the prison service to release this man. And it really is emblematic of how dysfunctional the criminal justice system is and how the interaction between the criminal justice system and the immigration system just doesn't work. And it hasn't worked for many, many years. The arrangements between the two are really, really poor. And, people might have forgotten, but the release of foreign national prisoners without being considered for deportation actually led to the resignation of a Home Secretary back in 2006, Charles Clarke. He had to resign, might have been 2007, forgive me. He had to resign because over 1,000 foreign national prisoners were released from jail without even being considered for deportation. So that's how serious it gets. I don't expect that David Lammy will be forced to quit over this. But it's hugely embarrassing for the government, because if there was one prisoner who you thought the authorities would go out of their way to make sure that all the rules are in place, that all the checks were carried out, that he was serving his sentence in accordance with what he should be doing, and that he would then be transferred to immigration custody and deported. There was one prisoner you thought that would be, copper-bottomed. It would be Hadush Kibatu. And
it is quite.
He's been let out.
Yeah, it is quite astonishing given the amount of publicity the Bell Hotel in Epping has received over housing immigrants, which is obviously where Kibatu was housed, and where, indeed, in Epping High Street, where he sexually assaulted the 14-year-old and a woman as well. We don't know where he is. There is still a manhunt going on for him. Danny, I mean, you mentioned in 2007 that Home Secretary had to resign over this matter. Now, the buck does stop with the top here. I mean, is this a situation where David Lammy might be finding himself in hot water and maybe his job is on the line?
Look, it's very difficult for David Lammy, but I don't think the individual release of a prisoner, however high profile, can be, the cause of the resignation of a Justice Secretary who's only been in post for, a month or 6 weeks or something like that. So I don't think we're into that territory. I note that a prison officer, I think, has been removed from the duties, from the discharge duties that he or she had at Chelmsford Prison. It appears that this was an administrative blunder or human error, wrong form filled out, something like that. And it should be said, and it's worth noting, that prisoners are released in error quite often. Last year, there were 87 prisoners released in error. So that's about 6 or 7 every month. The year before that, it was 71. It does happen. Usually, it will happen with a prisoner that we don't know about, and it might simply be a question of a few days. They're released a few days early. But in this case, we've heard about it because he's such a high-profile prisoner. Look, my expectation is that he will be found, he will be located quite quickly. The police, when they're focused on a manhunt, are really good at finding people. And I expect that he will be found, also because his options will be limited. He has that discharge grant, £76, I think it is. So that will, give him, some time. But the other options for him will be pretty limited. So I expect that we will find out, within 24 hours or so that he's been located.
Danny, obviously, the justice system, as we know, the criminal justice system, the police, we all know there are all problems with the justice system in this country at the moment. But the bottom line, the very bottom line is this man should not have been here in the first place. Time for governments, all colours, not even a political point, to stop messing around with one in, one out, smashing the gangs, all the other schemes, and just stop these men coming here in the first place.
Well, we don't want people to come across on small boats. We don't want people to come to the UK illegally. I think we're all agreed about that. The difficulty is to try and stop it. The previous government tried to stop the small boat crossings, and they couldn't do it. And this government is really struggling to do it as well.
They were stopped from trying, to be fair.
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
They were stopped from trying, to be fair. If you were talking about the Rwanda scheme, that never got off the ground, literally never got off the ground, because of the lawyers' situation.
Well, I mean, we can discuss that. My view is that was an ill-conceived scheme, and I don't think it would have worked. But the point is that they had various other initiatives that they tried. They put all their money in the end on Rwanda, a lot of money, and it didn't work. They didn't get it off the ground. This government has struggled because the numbers we know this year are higher than last year. Who are coming across. I think they've put a lot of things in place that are the right things to put in place, including better international cooperation. The one in, one out scheme, at least it is a scheme where we can return people to France. We couldn't do that in the 5 or 6 years before that. We can now do that. The numbers are small. If the numbers get ramped up into the hundreds every week, I think that will act as a deterrent. As it is, it's clearly not a deterrent. So it's a serious problem. No one's saying it isn't. And we don't want people to come here illegally, particularly when they make those very dangerous journeys on small boats.
Yeah, well, it needs to be ramped up more than the hundreds, doesn't it, if we're honest? I mean, 11,000 have come here since this scheme was initiated.
Well, I think if you had hundreds going back every week, I do think that would have an impact on people wanting to make that journey. But we haven't got those numbers yet, and I'm dubious as to whether we will ever get to those numbers, because I'm not sure it will be politically acceptable for the French, and also logistically, I think, very difficult as well.
Okay,
so yeah, we're in a real bind. But at least when someone's here and they've been sent to prison and they're in prison, you expect them to serve their sentence, and you expect that they're not going to be released when they shouldn't be, and that's a terrible failing that we've seen here.
That's where we are now. Danny, thank you very much. Labour Home Affairs advisor. Danny, don't go anywhere. We'll have more on this breaking story for you, the live manhunt. We'll be back in a few minutes after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, there's quite a chill in the air at the moment, and there's more cold weather to come as we go into the weekend. Also, a few showers pushing through. That's because we have a cold Arctic maritime air mass piling in from the north. Now, with that, there's also quite a bit of cloud and rain across the eastern parts of Scotland, northeast England at the moment. A lot of that is going to push its way southwards and eventually start to clear away towards the east into the North Sea as we go through the night. Elsewhere, some drier, at times clearer weather, but like I said, quite a few showers piling down on that northerly wind. Where we get some clear skies and in shelter from the brisk wind across parts of Scotland, we could see temperatures dipping close to, perhaps even a little bit below freezing. Elsewhere, because of the brisk winds, temperatures not dropping too low, but nonetheless a cold start to the day for many tomorrow. Plenty of showers piling in across northern parts of Scotland. When these reach higher ground, good chance that we're going to see some sleet and snow over the peaks in particular. Meanwhile, across Northern Ireland, it's a showery start to the day. Also showers across parts of Wales and southwest England. Across more central parts of England, it's largely dry. Some early sunshine as well. Across eastern parts, though, a bit cloudier, and it could be a bit damp first thing too. The rain, though, will clear away towards the east, and then we end up in, a bit of a showery setup in areas exposed to that northerly wind. So northern Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and southwest England. Plenty of showers here, and they could still be wintry over the high ground of Scotland. Elsewhere, drier, sunnier, but feeling cold, especially in the wind. Could see gales in some exposed eastern coastal parts. Then a cold night as we go through into Sunday, so a bit of frost for some. And then it gets off to a fine start on Sunday, but we are going to see cloud pushing in from the northwest, and it's going to turn wet and blustery as well. Now into next week, it's looking quite mixed, so some rain at times, but also some dry weather, and temperatures rising eventually as we go towards the end of the week. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A92 is delayed northbound between Cowdenbeath and Lochgelly due to a broken vehicle. In Cheshire East, a collision on the M6 northbound between junctions 16 and 17 has closed one lane. Traffic is slow on the M1 southbound near Nottingham between junctions 26 and 25. Congestion builds on the M3 eastbound between junctions 7 and 5 in Hampshire. Lane closures affect the M5 northbound between junctions 19 and 18 in Bristol. On the trains, Avanti West Coast faces disruption between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton, while Gatwick Express is disrupted at East Croydon. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewbs, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 7 o'clock and this is GB News Tonight with me, Dawn Neeson. Now, breaking news tonight, a major manhunt is underway after the Epping migrant convicted of a sex assault was freed from prison accidentally. Justice Secretary David Lammy said he is appalled at the wrongful release of Hadush Kibatu, adding the convicted sex attacker must be deported for his crimes and not on our streets. Meanwhile, leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, said the wrongful release shows that the entire system is collapsing under Labour. We'll bring you all the latest updates on this breaking news story on GB News Tonight. Yes, so thank you for your company. It's a very serious story. We're discussing a live manhunt underway in Essex as we speak. It's underway to find the Epping Hotel migrant sex attacker after he was accidentally released from jail. Hadush Kibatu was meant to be sent to an immigration centre to be deported, but it's understood that Kibatu was accidentally